All right, we are live. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Lou Perez podcast. I'm your host, Lou Perez, and I have a very exciting show for you. I have a very special guest. He's an author, he's a journalist, he's a great follow on Twitter. Please welcome David Marcus, everybody. And
How you
that's it.
doing, Lou?
That, that
Good night.
that's a
No,
fanfare right
no,
there.
I loved it. I'm very honored. When I do the big consequential shows, what I like to do is like make sure I dress up a little. I wear slacks. I put shoes on. Tonight I get to wear sweatpants, and so this is I'm feeling good, and let's chat.
Yeah, and for those of you who are just listening, David also has an Argentina jersey on. So
How many stars?
look at how many is there? Is that four? Is that three? 3 stars?
That's 3 stars.
3 stars. Well, it was a little hard for me to see that because David is so far in the background of his camera, and I've actually been trying to figure out how to work my camera because, as David pointed out before we went on the air, my head is gigantic. So I who knows what's going to happen. I don't know if there's
I
any
watched I
hope
watched
for this.
that I watched that game where the third star was achieved with my son.
Mm.
And I cried at the end, and my son was like, "Dad, are you okay?" And I was like, "No, no, no, this is good." I don't think I would have cried if it had ended in a more like traditional way, but
Right.
the way it ended, I was just that was it for me.
So for anyone who's listening, they probably know that my dad's from Argentina. So my connection to Argentina is through my dad. And it's so funny because for years I would always like kind of like make fun of guys who took sports too seriously, like guys who cried about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then what was it was probably I guess technically 3 World Cups ago when Argentina was in the finals against Germany and
Oh,
they lost. And I
remember the disallowed goal?
dude, and I wept like a baby.
Hmm.
And because so much of, I guess, the connection that I have to Argentina and the team, it's through my dad, So in a way, I'm thinking about that. And then this time around, we were so, it was so, uh, like me and my brothers, we all have kids and we all live like sort of like all over New York and New Jersey. And none of us thought like, yo, we should all get together to watch this game, which was going to be the greatest soccer match ever, possibly the greatest game of anything ever. So I ended up watching it uh, at home, like by myself, and it was in overtime when my wife brought our baby to me. So I was sitting on the couch, and she said, "He won't stay still. Like, can you hold him?" And this kid never stays still when you hold him. And for some reason, I held him, and he stood still. So there I was
And
lying.
then Mbappe scored.
Yeah, dude, dude. So I'm there on the couch, like trying not to move, and then they go into like the penalty kicks, and I have this little guy who never sleeps on my chest. And this is like one of the first times that he's actually sleeping on my chest while this game is being played. And they win. They get the 3 stars as you describe it. And I'm just crying. And then
I
there I
was
am
no,
again.
I got
Yeah.
I have no connection family wise to Argentina. What happened to me was in 1990, I was 16, and my parents took me on a 3 week vacation to Cozumel in Mexico, right as the World Cup's happening.
Oh, wow.
And it was 1990, so Mexico had been disqualified because they had been using like players who were overage in the like under 20 FIFA. Right. So
That's a
cheating,
very Dominican thing in baseball, I think.
right, but cheating Mexicans got thrown out of the World Cup. And so here's me at 16. I go down to Mexico and the World Cup's happening. So all the Mexican guys are now rooting for Argentina. I didn't know why. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I didn't know what the World Cup was, Lou.
Mhm.
Honestly, no like white kid from Philly had any conception of what this even was. So I'm down there and I get to go to bars
Right.
because I'm 16 and oh my goodness. And my parents are busy doing whatever they're doing. So I'm going to these bars and the World Cup's on. And everyone's rooting for Argentina. And I see this little guy, this little stubby guy doing stuff that seems impossible. 6 Belgians, giant Belgian men will surround him and he just, kind of pops out and does a little boogie and scores. And of course, that's Diego Maradona. And that was how, I came to soccer and to love Argentina.
Yeah. I don't know
And
if
then I got Messi.
right. I mean, then it's just another gift to the world. There's a guy, Gad Sad, who I think he's a evolutionary biologist or something like that. But anyway, he's on YouTube, and he did this really incredible video, like post game video, and he's a huge soccer fan. I think he might have been pro when he was younger, and just talking about Messi and how him winning was sort of this testament to just the universe, I don't know, doing it right once. Like if there's ever a time when the universe actually, like when there was a gift where it's sort of like this was the right thing, this had to happen, this was justice, this was, beauty, this was everything. And yeah, and anybody who watched that game, man, oh
Yeah,
boy.
sometimes that happens, and sometimes, the Dalai Lama tells some kid like suck my tongue. So, it cuts both ways.
It does cut both ways. But yeah, what's going on with that? I was
Well,
before we got on. Oh yeah, go
no,
right.
I'll tell you because I wrote a column for the Daily Mail today about this, right? And yeah, no, he's like suck my tongue. Like obviously this is like a big problem, but the thing that I grasped onto first, and it's in my column, is like the defense was this sort of like cultural thing of like in Tibet, like sticking out your tongue is like a thing. And I immediately jumped to Andrew Cuomo.
Oh yeah, the Italian. Like I'm
No,
Italian.
remember, no, because sometimes we touch.
Come
Right?
on, we talk with our hands. We
I go,
touch with our hands.
bro, we do. And I was like, oh my God, the Dalai Lama. Because I remember thinking when Cuomo got in that hot water, I literally thought to myself, he might do this. And I thought, he probably won't because you can't really actually do it, right? He did it. He just flat out was like, "What? I'm Italian,"
I'm Italian from the beginning. My nonna would just come in. She'd squeeze your balls. She could squeeze your tits, whatever you got. My
Now,
nonna would do it.
listen, Lou. Now, listen. We both do. There is something to it, right? Like
Right.
we both hung out in Bensonhurst, right? And there's always that point in the evening when it's like, some guys like cupping your balls, and you're like, "Hey, get your back off," right?
I mean that's why
And
I
he's
would
like,
go to
and
Benson.
he goes, "What? No, hey, whoa, no, I'm cupping your balls. It's not a biggie. What? I'm Italian, right?"
I'm the
You've
Dalai
experienced
Lama.
this.
Come on, I'm the Dalai Lama Bensonhurst.
Yeah,
Come
that's
on,
how you know you're not gay. If you can cup a guy's balls for like 20 minutes casually and be like, "No, man, the problem with the Islanders is management. It's never been any of the players. It's not the coaching. If you hear Francesa today, if you can do that for 20 minutes and nothing happens, then you're not gay."
I think that's that might be one of the pillars of Buddhism, right? Life is suffering, and if you can hang on a guy's nutsack for a little while, then you've reached it. My apologies that I didn't read your piece, but have like I don't know, Richard Gere come out, like actors like that, and in defense.
No. Cardi B did.
Oh,
Cardi B was deeply offended, and I noted that was the absolute correct way to feel about this.
Mm.
There's not, Lou, is there some occasion on which you could meet a kid you've never met before and be like, suck my tongue? And there's some way to explain that as
Yeah, there's so
I know
much.
you're not a living God, so that's
Right,
different. But
that's true. Yeah, now I'm thinking like, what was I in my past life that brought me here? But it is funny, and I don't know whatever the cultural apologia was for it, but it seems like there's just so much happening today where it's like I wouldn't have a problem with any of this shit, but you're involving kids, and I don't get it. Like I really don't understand, and I guess we see a lot of that with like the drag stuff. And if it's like, if it was just, like the drag story hour, I could see, okay, you dress up, you kind of like a clown and you're reading a book. But then it's like bringing your kids to all out drag shows. For one, I don't, as a parent, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not into it. But also, like, as a performer, I can't imagine wanting that to be your audience. Looking out into your audience and seeing like a 6-year-old kid, it just seems like I don't get it, So
I mean, the 6-year-olds don't get the sophisticated humor, so that's a problem. First of all,
right.
it's you have to work down, and it's it's the no, Lou. No, I'll tell you. The reason they need the kids is this, and it's kind of insidious, right? The reason that the trans movement needs the kids is that the trans movement is using the playbook of like, I was born this way, this is who I am, this is right. This is which I think most of us now sort of accept is true about being homosexual. I look, I don't know, but in the ballpark, right?
Hmm.
But in order for that to be true for the trans movement, there have to be trans kids. So I really do think that the whole notion of trans kids is much more about justifying the existence of trans adults
Mm.
than it is about, you know, I look, what I wanted to say was sincere concern about those kids, but I'm not going to suggest that the people who love those kids don't have I'm not going to say that the people who love those kids don't have a sincere concern
Hmm.
about their well-being. But it's tough, man.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. I mean, there's so much. So I have my kids are 3 and 18 months, and just like in the day to day, like uh, me losing my patience, raising my voice, you know, like which is like a normal thing. Parents mess up. You make you yell when you shouldn't have. I look back on those moments, and I'm like, man, is that going to fuck up my kid? You know, and that's just like a really a normal thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to do better. uh, our 3-year-old is potty training, right? And it's like, how do we, work with him so we're not like putting pressure on him, because it all comes down to like, I don't want to give this kid a complex. I don't want to fuck this kid up over, because he shit his pants, Um, so that's me in the day to day. The idea of like, yeah, what if I take my kid to a show where a dude with huge fake tits and a thong is what who's just tucked his package behind him is you know singing along to deeper and deeper by Madonna, which is my favorite Madonna song. But
No, I
I
know,
don't
Lou.
I don't
Obviously, this is why you pack the kids up and send them to grandma's on Saturday night, right? So that
I can go
then
and have fun.
then
Yeah, exactly.
no, I get you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's no, it's a hell of a thing. I guess you try to keep them innocent, right?
Right, as long as you can. Yeah. Yeah.
You do the best you can with that.
You do the best you can. Yeah. Um
Look, can I ask you a question, Lou?
yeah, go for it.
So, I love your comedy. I think you've always been fantastic and everything. I wanted to ask you this question because I don't know I'm curious what you'd say. Do you consider yourself to be a straight man or a comedian? Because I've seen you do both and
Mm.
you're good at both. I have my idea as to what you more naturally are. I'm curious what you think.
No, I think that's a good point. I think there's something with like social media in particular where you kind of have like this holistic sort of like this whole
Hmm.
holistic characteristic of the person where there are many times when my real, my beliefs slip through. And I like it when my friends, like call me out. They're like, "Hey, I don't." It's like, where's the where's the punchline? Oh, Lou's getting a little, a little serious here. So I think, in a way, like I can't, you know always stop myself from things going through. But I think I kind of start from a place of uh unless.
When you're the therapist, you're the straight man, right?
Yeah,
When you're the therapist with the
right.
KKK guys, your job is the classic straight man job of the fat guys are going to try to make me laugh. My
Right.
job is to not laugh.
And to call out the, insanity of whatever they're saying.
Right. But key to it is you can't laugh, right? You have
Right.
to be the straight man has to be absolutely impenetrable in
Yeah.
that comedy dynamic, or it doesn't work.
Yeah, but one of the things just in regular life, when like when I would, meet like my wife when we were dating, I would meet her friends for the first time. I would say shit with a straight face, and they didn't know how to take it. Like they're like, is he serious? Is he joking? So yeah, being able to have keep a a literal straight face is key. But yeah, I think I definitely um, I hope that whatever I put out there are more punchlines than straight up like virtue signaling on whatever virtues that I happen to hold to hold dear to me. So, if
Yeah,
that
no,
answers your question.
no. I think that you do. I just, I think about that dynamic a lot. Like I spend most of my time as a straight man, right?
Mm.
And there would be plays that I was in or sketches or whatever it was, like, and the comedian would literally be like spitting popcorn in my face,
Oh, right.
right? Like make and break. There's a great, you or like anyone watching, like should look up. There's an amazing YouTube video that you can find of Bob Newhart on Dean Martin's show, right? And they're
Mm.
doing this sketch, and Dean's playing the guy behind the counter at the department store, and Newhart is bringing something back to return it, and it's a toupee, right? Right. So Newhart's like trying to quietly
Right
return
off
this
the bat,
toupee,
it's
right? So,
hilarious. Yeah.
right. This is already very funny, right? So they're going through it, and they're doing it, and Dino starts breaking. Now Newhart, you see, he breaks a little bit, right? You see a little smile crack on his face, and you see this whole thing is kind of like falling apart, right? And finally, Dino, who's almost about to break, says, "Well, what is it that you want, sir?" And Newhart looks him dead in the eyes and he goes, "Well, I'd like a straight man who didn't laugh."
Oh,
And it's like the funniest thing of all time.
yeah.
But you can't plan for that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What do they call it? In theater about like is it dropping the salt or something like that, knocking over the salt?
Yeah, like sometimes it happens and it's glorious, and you get to be in that moment, and
Yeah.
like everybody in that room. I'm sure you've been in that room in comedy clubs where like something happens and it's just like, oh my god, like we're all here in this moment. We all just understood the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that they're with the straight man stuff. I think it was, I don't know if it was Jack Lemon who was talking about like the odd couple,
Yeah,
and just talking about how hard it is. Or I don't know if Jack Lemon was talking about it, but just how like I think Jack Lemon's character doesn't like he's not the funny guy. Like he's not. I think Oscar's like the
Ja-
Walter Matthau character. Like Oscar has all the jokes, and yet Jack Lemmon still is able to make it hilarious, by playing the straight man. So it's sort of a, yeah, you need that. Yeah, we used to get in this all the time. Like early on in sketch comedy, especially, well, in improv, especially when it was like two crazy people in a scene. Like it's just, you need that grounding. You need, some semblance of reality. You need somebody to call out and just say, okay, this is where we are. Otherwise, it just sort of, the scene can just fly
Almost
off.
sometimes also the person reacting to it, right?
Right.
Like the person who's like, oh wait, this isn't normal, right? Who gets to be the conduit for the audience into the comedian's madness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Abbott and Costello work this way, where like you're Abbott because you understand that the baseball players' names are these like prepositions or whatever that form of grammar is, right?
Right.
Like you're in on the joke.
Yeah.
And when Costello keeps getting upset about who's on first, you're with the straight man here, and that's why it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think the rule is like, it's like, what is the strange or interesting thing, So like with the Bob Newhart thing, he's returning a toupee. Like we already
Yes.
like
Right.
we started in a strange place, and now it's like playing it real around that. That's the one thing that I'm so happy that.
What is it like to return a toupee, Lou?
What is it? I don't know, but yeah, dude, David Marcus is rubbing it in because he's got a fantastic head of hair.
For now, nobody knows.
Bullshit, man.
Right.
How old are you? What are you? 40?
I'm 1,000,008 years old.
1,000,008 years.
Yeah.
And eight. That hair ain't going nowhere, man. He's got that. And also he's smoking too. I requested that he smoke a couple of ciggies.
This made all Media Matters and all these other places were like furious that I smoke on television. Why?
Well, I guess it's so rare now. Well, for one, Media Matters. I mean, I guess
I know
whatever they can get you on, they'll try to get you on. But it is rare. I mean, one of the fun things is like look at like old was like Mike Wallace from like the '60s on TV, black and white, and everybody's got a cig. Everyone's got it.
Are you old enough to remember like rehearsal rooms where people were smoking?
I don't think anybody.
I'm a little older than you.
Yeah, no. I think I'm old enough to remember in New York when the no smoking ordinance went into effect. So it was like because what would happen was you would go to a bar and people would be smoking, right? So, you go, you party, you'd fall asleep, you'd wake up, and then I'm not a smoker. I would take a shower and it would just be like all the smoke would just come off me, and it'd be in my clothes and all that. And then I remember
sorry. It must have been horrible for you.
Yeah, it was terrible, man. What the fuck, David?
like
Media Matters.
Holocaust.
I wanted to. Yeah, exactly. A little bit, a little mini.
All right. Yeah.
No, and then I remember there was the ordinance, and then that was no more, and it was like, whoa, this is such a huge change in the city. So, yeah, he just put out a cigarette. He just quit smoking on the air right now.
No, that's great, Lou. No, that's fantastic. And then you know what else they did? Then what they did was they said, who cares if you robbed a bodega?
Oh yeah.
No, it's fine. Go run out on the streets again.
Yeah.
That's your New York. In my New York, criminals were prosecuted and you could smoke in bars. In your New York, you get to smell. What is your bath? What do you do? Do you have soap or do you have like bath wash that's like lavender?
Oh,
What is it that you have so that you don't smell like cigarettes?
Let's see. It's
like a man, Lou.
Whatever
like a man smells.
Whatever my wife is using, I basically take a little bit of that.
Is there pomegranate involved?
Oh man, pomegranate on a loofah. Whoo, David, man, that's a dream right there. So.
You don't want to smell like cigarettes and war
and dead dreams.
Like horror and the.
Well, I grew up. Both of my parents were smokers. My dad quit pretty early on, but then my mom continued I don't know how many years were coming up on my mom not smoking, but when I was a kid, like in middle school, high school, we all wanted her to stop smoking. So what I used to do is I used to take her packs of smokes, and then I would run it under the faucet. I'd
Don't
run,
do this.
and then I would put it away, and then wherever I was in the house, you would just hear, "You son of a bitch! You son of a bitch!" And she knew it. And
It's not your place.
no, it's not my place. It's true. But she used to do this funny thing where she would kind of hide smoke, her smoking.
Yeah.
But she decided out of all the places in our house to hide, her smoking, she did it in the laundry room. So it's like she would smoke down in the laundry room, and then all of her clothes would smell like cigarettes. It's like she's a
Yeah, but
terrible liar.
Lou,
She's a terrible liar.
listen. I'm sorry. What you still live in New York City, right?
No, I'm in Jersey. Suburbs.
You're in Jersey.
Yeah,
No,
I got
you're in
out.
Jersey. When was the last time you walked outside of your house and you didn't smell weed?
Oh, no. Thankfully, we're in a part where, yeah. Oh no, actually, oh my God, it's so funny.
Yeah,
You
see?
break, holy shit. Yeah, because we were going for a walk in the neighborhood,
Yep.
and one of the neighbors, I don't know if it's like their, daughter or something, was out on the porch, and I asked my wife, I'm like, "Do you smell weed?" She's like, "Yeah, it was probably her." So I almost had it where I was
It was
completely
probably
away from it.
her.
Oh yeah, definitely her. But I
What's
almost
that?
had it a
What are
day
you
without it.
like? That's not. You can't. That's not. You don't have any evidence of that.
No, I mean, my nose. She was the only one there. So, I mean, I'm not, I'm
I
not a
don't know, man.
detective, but
Is this live? Because I feel like you're walking into dangerous legal territory, accusing your young neighbor of
I didn't,
crimes.
I didn't
When
say
you
any names. I didn't mention any names.
No,
But,
that's true.
but
That's
what's your
true.
point? But your point is, I mean, if you go in the city now, it reeks. It reeks of weed. So
I mean, yeah, like and I don't know. Like, is that? I don't know how bad that is. Is that like horrible? Like it used to reek of cigars. I don't know.
I mean, if I had to choose, I do prefer the smell of cigars to the smell of pot. But I just find it
Yeah, but
weird
what
now
is the
because I mean, people have, vape pens, they have
You could.
vaporizers.
There are certainly other options. No, I remember back in the day, like oh god, I'm going back like 2008, 2009, right? Like
Mhm.
I used to. What I would do when I was walking around the Lower East Side and I wanted to like smoke some grass, right? Like I'd put it in the end of a cigarette,
Right.
and that right. So I just put like a little grass at the end of a cigarette, and then I'd sort of like walk around smoking that. And I remember one time that like a cop came, two cops, like they come up to me, right? They're like, "You smoking grass?" I'm like, "Oh no, like it's just like I pulled out my pack of Samps and I'm just like, no, I just rolled my own cigarette." And they're like, "Because we smell grass," and I'm like, "Yeah, no, I smell that too. I don't know." And it was funny because I told that story. I was doing a show at the time, and one of the actors I was working with was a black guy, and I told him that story like it was funny, right? And he didn't. He didn't think it was as funny. Like he
He was like,
thought,
"Wow,
like,
they were rather polite to you.
yes,
Isn't that interesting?
yes.
That's very interesting." What would be interesting is like if they actually arrested the black guy next to you.
No, I don't know. Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. Like, oh no, I think it's that guy. No, look, I don't know. No, I don't know if there was anything nefarious or not or
Mhm.
whatever. Right, but like that was how everything sort of got interpreted by everybody sort of involved in the telling of the story.
Mhm.
Right,
Right. Yeah.
and that stuck with me a little bit.
Yeah. Did you ever
And I'm
did
not
you,
dismissive of it.
did you ever do any of the merch? You remember when Marlboro would do like points, and you can get like points for your Marlboro cigarettes?
Oh man, I remember being in Philly in the late '90s when they'd walk in. Tell me if you remember this. They'd walk in the bar and they'd be like, "Would you fill out a survey and we'll give you 2 packs of Marlboros?"
I think I remember that.
You
Yeah.
remember that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they'd walk in and they'd just be like, you'd be like some cute girl, right? And it'd just be like, oh, just fill out this survey, you get 2 packs of Marlboros. And
How do you feel in the year 2023 still being a smoker? Do you think is it like, hanging on to, I don't know, bell-bottom jeans? Like what do you think it's gonna make a comeback? What do you
it's like hanging on to James Joyce and Jack Kerouac, man. Like it's like it's like hanging on to the concept of pleasure in life. It's hanging on to the idea that we aren't just here to you know vote or you know react to the latest insanity, right? Like we're actually here to sort of enjoy what we're doing, and if that's 2.5 minutes of smoking a cigarette and like thinking about high ideas, that's a pretty good 2.5 minutes.
Yeah. I have a feeling Media Matters is gonna clip this and then say, "David Marcus does not believe in democracy because he says we're not just here to vote." So
Are we? I mean, I don't know. I wanted to ask you this too, Lou.
Yeah.
Like, so because we've differed a little, I think, on the gun control issue. I'm very pro Second Amendment. I think the laws
Mm,
as we have them right now are basically fine. I wouldn't change anything. I think what makes me a little different from most sort of pro 2A people is that I acknowledge the fact that our rather liberal gun laws are the reason that we have many more gun deaths. And I'm not really shy about saying, like, yes, if we adopted Australia or England's blah, 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 we could probably cut those numbers, right? Like, I don't feel intellectually honest suggesting that that's not true. So I have to say, yeah, we're making a choice here.
mhm.
Does that make sense?
No, I think that makes total sense. You know, yeah, if you start, crunching the numbers, it makes sense that, a lot we have a lot of, gun homicides. Obviously, if people want to if this were a debate and we were looking to win, then, you'd go into those numbers and say, well, per capita versus this and a lot of the, how many are suicides and well, if you look across to this other place, what are their gun deaths or or murders per capita and all that. But no, I think having an honest discussion, it's like, yeah, when you have the the tool, the weaponry, people are going to use that for sure.
And freedom's dangerous. It's
Right.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? What's really dangerous right now is that as we're confronting China and Russia and Iran, there is a lever of power that they have an enormous advantage over us in, and it's informational, right? Like when you think about national security, there's a paradigm called the dime paradigm. DIME, right? These are the levers of power that
Mhm.
a nation has to exert over other nations. There's diplomatic, there's informational, there's military, and there's economic. Military, we're number one. Economic, we're still pretty close to number one, right? Diplomatic, we're very good. Informational, we have a problem because China and Russia can control the information that comes into their country.
Mm.
They can absolutely do it. We can't. And because we live in a free society, we have to just exist with this disadvantage.
I remember years ago, you were a guest on a live podcast I used to do called Unsafe Space, and we were talking. I think it was right after Trump won, and something that we brought up, or I think you brought up, the question of, who would you rather see leading the world, right? Because if it ain't the U.S., then it's somebody else,
That
and
was an old Donald. That was the old Donald Rumsfeld question.
you know, and I think that's a fair. a fair question to ask. And in that same conversation, because I think we were talking about um, hacking and misinformation and that sort of thing, where I was like, where the fuck are the American hackers? Where are they on the world stage? I mean, it's no, it's no secret that the CIA will distribute information and that sort of thing. But it seems like if anybody's keeping staying up with the media, it's like here we are at the mercy of some guy in Moscow or
I mean, look,
somebody in
I
China.
imagine,
It's
I imagine there's things we're not talking about, right? For good reasons.
sure, yeah.
I'm guessing we've got like the Matthew Broderick
Was this war
guy
war games? Is that
doing
what you're
it.
saying?
Yeah, right. Like, but we don't know about him, and like you
Uh-huh.
can't, or and if I told you about him, then they'd have to kill me. So I'm not going to do that.
Right. But it is something where it seems like
Look, Lou, it's
it's
a
like we're just at the
disadvantage. Like you
yeah.
can't, like there's no way to spin it. Like a free society is going to have problems in terms of informational warfare.
Yeah.
And I think, when I look at this stuff like the disinformation boards and like blah, 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 and like all this is clearly like abject madness, right? That's not it. You have to target the Russians, right? You can't approach this by saying we're gonna handle this by limiting the American people's access to information. You can't do that. I don't want my access to information limited. The way you attack this is by attacking the bad actors in Russia and Iran and China and those
Mhm.
places. That's the only way you can deal with this.
Mhm. Is there yeah, I'm trying to where are you on, I guess, on what TikTok? TikTok is the
I don't know. Like, look, it's a problem, right? Like, obviously, the Chinese Communist Party is spying on millions of Americans, who go through TikTok. I had this. I don't think my son's on TikTok. I check his phone all the time. Like, like that, don't be on TikTok. But I don't know. The president of the United States just said he's going to not employ because they're not getting paid. Right? I don't know, whatever. Like he's gonna, harness an army of influencers to go on TikTok, run by the Chinese Communist Party, to try to get Gen Z to, vote for him. And I don't know what to do.
yeah, it is wild. I'm for those of you who don't know, I'm a 41-year-old male and I'm on TikTok. And I've had some success on it. It is, I could see the attraction, especially if you're, a comedian or an entertainer. You put like a 30-second clip on and it could,
Are you on
it could blow up.
OnlyFans too?
Um, that's not me.
Oh,
The
that's
Yeah, everybody who's, you've been giving your money to the wrong person. I have sexy feet. That's the truth,
yeah, yeah.
but those aren't my feet. So there,
Now you know.
there you go. Now you know. Um, something that you tweeted today, actually, and I'm really happy that you tweeted. And it's like going back, I guess, to Argentina. It was a clip of Jorge Luis Borges talking with William F. Buckley Jr. And for those of you who don't know, Borges is a giant when it comes to literature, not just Spanish language literature, um, uh, but he's put, I guess, in like sort of like the is it the Parthenon or the Pantheon with experimental writers like Kafka and Joyce. He's a
Absolutely.
huge fan of Joyce. Um, and for one, I think it's an incredible testament to just how amazing there were times when, on television, you could have Jorge Luis Borges talking with William F. Buckley Jr., where I feel like that sort of thing, it might happen now, but it happens on, online and, podcasts, which I think this is sort of the equivalent. Jorge Luis Borges right now and William F. Buckley Jr. talking. But the clip, and you guys can go, you can check out a Blue Box Dave on Twitter or my at the Lou Perez, because I retweeted it too. It's a clip where Borges talking about how, I guess in his opinion, English is the superior language to Spanish, and how even though he's Spanish speaking, he does a lot of his writing in English because of. Maybe you could take it from there if you want.
I think he means superior language specifically in the context of writing, right? I don't think he's saying like, I love my grandmother more because I say it in English than you love your grandmother in Spanish.
He's not the guy in Philly saying learn English or leave.
Right.
He's not that guy.
He might be, but I don't think that's what he's saying here. I think the point is he says a very interesting thing, right? He says that Spanish is a Romance language, right? France is a Romance language, or French is a Romance language, right? English is a combination of German and Latin, and it creates a really interesting universe of possibilities in terms of how the English language expresses ideas. He talks about the difference between the Latin word spirit, which is light and airy, and the German or Saxon word ghost, which is darker.
Yeah.
He talks about the physicality of the English language. The English language also has like vastly more words than any other language. So, this is something I've thought a lot about. Maybe because I feel guilty because I don't really speak any other languages, but I do think English is. There's a reason that it became the new lingua franca, right? The term lingua franca literally means from Latin, the common language, and it was French, right? Through the 19th century into much of the early 20th century, and then it became English. And much as I'm not too concerned about the dollar, I'm not too concerned about the English language losing its primacy, because it's just more stable, it's more active, and frankly more beautiful.
Yeah, you can notice that we're, popular music going all around the world. You talk about like, the United States has so much cultural exports, and one of them is definitely our language. Yeah, I feel
England would probably claim it, but screw them.
Yeah, screw them. Yeah, we're different. We speak American here. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed that clip, and you've been posting a lot. In addition to, you have a book out. What's your book about? COVID, right?
Yeah, man, that came out. God, it's crazy that it came out almost 2 years ago, because
Almost 2 years. Wow.
Yeah, it came out in summer of 2021. I wrote it during 2020. It really only covers 2020.
Mm.
And I wrote it live. Like I wrote the book as I was covering this for the Federalist, and I really did it because it became obvious to me, I would say by April or May of 2020, that the real history of this thing was not gonna be told.
Mm.
And the knock on my book is that it's very personal in a lot of ways. In fact, my first publisher rejected it. And they said, Dave, this is too much of you in the backyard listening to like the silence of New York and sirens and like the cultural implications and blah, blah, blah. We wanted what was happening at the White House. Okay, fair enough. My second publisher was comfortable with what I had written. In retrospect, I feel like what I wrote is a lot more important, because what we actually went through is the thing that matters, not, what strange discussions were happening at, health and human, resources or whatever.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I think, you know, during that time, I definitely uh, discovered, if I hadn't known before, just how important, human connections and relationships are. When you're put in a position where you're told basically not to have physical connections with people, when everybody was, creating their own pod, and there was, you know, this um, being suspect, treating others like suspects that, they could possibly be delivering the mask of the Red Death, to you. It definitely changes people, and it messes people up. And in my book, I went through, in one of the chapters, I talk a little bit about that. Um, did that have an impact on you as a writer? So what I was going to say is, in addition to writing the book, and also, your journalism, you write quite a bit, at least on Twitter, about writing, about being an author, about uh, how how much that is your identity, like above all else. I remember there were a number of series people asking, like, "Who pays you, man? Who pays you?" As if it's like, yeah, you get paid for your writing, but you write what you write. You write what you want to write, and thankfully you're able to, to find outlets where you can get that out. So,
No, man, look, I spent, you and I know each other from before this, right?
right.
I spent almost 20 years in theater telling stories. Um, I'm a storyteller. That's my job. Whether that was producing the Sticky series in New York, right? Whether that was being a columnist for the Federalist, whether that's what I do now, like, you tell stories, right? This is a stand-up comedian. Like, what you're really doing is just sort of telling the story of what's going on. And I think a really important thing that I realized, like, it was only a couple of years ago. It took me a long time to realize this. It doesn't matter who I think the GOP nominee should be, right? Do I want Trump? Do I want DeSantis? Who cares? Right? That's not my job. And you think that it is because you think, like, oh, I'm an opinion columnist. Well, everybody wants my opinion. No, that's not really the job. The job is to listen to people and be like, well, why do people want Trump?
Hmm.
Why do people want DeSantis? And break that down. That's what the job is at the end of the day. And the problem is, right now, you can't do that job because, Lou, it's insane. If I say, maybe DeSantis shouldn't run, everyone goes, "Oh my God! All right, so Joe Biden gets 4 more years, and it's the end of America, and that's what you want, right?" And I'm like, no, that's not what I want. Right? But at the same time, if I say, well, maybe Trump shouldn't, like, screw porn stars and, like, pay them off, I get like, oh, so you're fine with, like, malicious political prosecution? You're fine with, like, a banana Republican? And I'm like, no, I'm not saying any of these things. That none of that is what I'm saying. But that's the dynamic right now.
Yeah, it's such a black and white. It's either you're in this camp and you're in that, or you're in that camp.
You
But,
can't make a value neutral statement. You can't just
yeah.
say, like, oh, here's what I think. It's always like, oh, what's the agenda behind that? There's got to be a reason that Dave's saying that. No, most of the time there isn't. Most of the time I'm just saying it because, like, oh, here's an interesting thing that I think might be true.
Hmm. Right. And with that, I mean, dude, I don't. What's going to happen? Yeah, and I think is the DNC going to be in Chicago?
Yes,
That's
which
wild.
that's gonna be fantastic, man. I mean,
Yeah.
like, bring your own shotgun. I don't. What do you do? Like,
I mean, what was it? 60? Was it 68 when it
Mhm.
was last in Chicago? And they were just
I think it's
oh,
been there since then. But yes, 68 was the blow up.
and then where's the RNC going to go?
The RNC's in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee. Okay.
Yeah, so it's super exciting.
Super exciting. Milwaukee.
I know it's gonna be great. There's so many fantastic things to do in Milwaukee. There's walking around.
Well, isn't
I think
Laverne and
they have beer
Shirley, right?
there. Right, what else do they have in Milwaukee?
Yeah, the Laverne and
I'm sorry.
Shirley
Am I gonna get?
Museum.
They're gonna be Milwaukee. See, like I'm worried it's gonna be like Milwaukee people who are angry at me, but I don't think there are any.
I would love for you to be actually accused of being
Are there Brewers
a
fans?
shill for Milwaukee. I don't
That would be
know.
great. I would do that. If Milwaukee wanted to give me, I'd need a lot of money. But like if Milwaukee wanted to give me like 200 grand, like the mayor of Milwaukee called me up and was like, Dave, I'll give you 200 grand right now. Right. We'll do it off the books, whatever. Just sort of like, I'll get you the cash. Right. But I need you just to like talk Milwaukee up over the next year and like everything you do.
I mean, you're gonna have to do a
It's a
lot of
hard thing to
research.
say no to, right?
It's hard,
Yeah,
but
but
that's
I
gonna take a
could.
lot of work.
I know, but I feel like I could do it if I had, if I had to. Maybe 500 grand.
So other than Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
What are some things that are on your mind that are
What else could I get bought off for?
yeah,
Only Milwaukee.
part of that. No, because I just feel like with everything that's going on, I don't have the bandwidth to keep up on, all of these, twists and turns and all that. Uh everything that I mean, like I said, like, 2024 is, oh my God, it's so, it's so near. It's like we're gonna have like another, campaign season with all this stuff going on. Um, all the stuff happening on, Twitter itself, even if you were just like somebody who was just 100% online, just following what the hell is going on Twitter. I mean, there's already like too much there. So I don't know. I'm like, I think,
I'll tell you, Lou, I'm following the AI stuff. In fact, this isn't me. You've actually this entire interview has been with AI Dave.
AI
Um,
Dave.
so like, so that's sort of well, I should say that's what Dave has kind of been focused on. It's on AI Dave.
Dude, no
Dave,
wonder your hair is so black and so thick, man.
he doesn't like when people point that out, Lou.
Well, Dave, something I want to do. So, for those of you who have tuned in, thank you so much for listening to this. We're actually gonna halt the live stream right now, and we're gonna go over to my locals exclusive. I got a few questions for Dave that came in from my locals community. If you guys want to join it, go to thelouperez.locals.com and pick up my book. That joke isn't funny anymore, and follow Dave Marcus on Twitter at Blue Box Dave. Like I said, he's a great writer, great follow, and thank you for joining me here, Dave.
God bless, Lou.
Cool. Let's stop this.